This is the exact onboarding guide that I use with my clients to help them implement AI without the overwhelm. So, the big question that I get very often is I don't even know where to start with adopting AI. So, I wanted to break down how I take people from AI beginner to AI confident in the workplace. So, when it comes to my basic setup, we have five main topics that we're going to be looking to cover. First, being the mindset, then talking about how to communicate with the AI tools, then we move into getting immediate quick wins, move into the data safety and privacy when it comes to using these tools, and lastly, team communication amongst the team. So, to start off, we have the mindset. So, when it comes to the mindset of using AI in the workplace, a shift needs to happen. You need to go from I have to use this tool or I feel like I'm being forced to use this tool to a I get to use this tool. I get to understand these new tools. I get to benefit from them. Because at the end of the day, this is only meant to make your life easier, even if the beginning is a little bit of brunt work and a little bit of a mindset shift. So we have a couple different points here. And the first being that AI is an enabler, not a replacement. Just like I said, it's meant to benefit us more than it is to replace us. Now, you will see that there are some tasks that AI can help replace, but they're not replacing in that task. They're enhancing that task, allowing you to have more time to focus on other parts of your day. Now, the next point is to focus on learning and incremental improvement. You're not going to simply just adopt AI in one day. You're not going to adopt it in one session, one workshop, or anything like that. Those are just the catalysts to get you started on your journey, get you started and moving in the right direction of slowly growing over time. Because, like, just like learning anything else, this takes time. When it comes to these tools, once you get over that little bit of I'm not too sure, you start recognizing very quickly how these tools can benefit you, and you can pick them up fairly quickly as well. Like even within a week, you should be confidently using these tools and able to get good results from them. Now, lastly, perfect is simply not what you're aiming for. You're simply not going to be getting perfect results, a perfect knowledge of the tools. All you need to be looking is to start. That's all the goal is with these beginner workshops, beginner onboarding sessions. It's all about just getting everybody confident and starting to move, like I said, in that right direction. The saying I like to say here is start small and think big. Start with these small, immediate tasks that you can utilize, and then from there, think big as to how it's going to impact you in the future once you're more confident with them. Next, we have communicating with the tools themselves. So, one of the biggest stick points for people in the implementation process, especially in the learning process, is having to understand prompting. Now, I want to come in and say that it can be complicated at first because you're getting used to it, but within a week, I can say confidently that you will be confident using these tools, but you have to give it the time. You have to really play with it at first. So some of the tips that I recommend and that we cover in our onboarding process is to not think of it as this like crazy, super smart tool that knows everything and is always going to get everything right because you're going to be disappointed. I always recommend coming at it from a point of, hey, this is more of like your friend. This is more of like your intern. This is just a really smart person in your life that you're able to utilize at any point at any point in time. So when it comes to that, like I said, think when you're approaching in terms of the prompting side of things, what you would say to another person is what you would want to include in your response or your prompt to the tool itself. So if you would usually add that context, like let's say you're a marketing firm and you're trying to tell your friend about what you do at your job, give the same context that you would to the chatbot that you would to another person. My next tip is to always be clear and to the point with these tools. They benefit from just simple, clean language. So, what I recommend is when you're going to these tools, have an idea of what you're trying to accomplish in mind and have an end goal that you can give to the tool. Say, hey, this is the end goal we have in mind. This is what we're trying to achieve. Here's what we need your help with to end up getting this end goal, because then it has a framework of what exactly it's meant to do rather than you kind of just throwing a bunch of random things at it and then it's not really sure what next steps it should be taking. You don't want it to guess, you want it to all be laid out exactly for it. The last thing that I always like to emphasize in our onboarding sessions is to be patient with the tool and with yourself. Now, look, these tools are awesome. They're great. They're beneficial. That's what they're meant to be for, but they can be frustrating at times. So, being patient not only with the tool, but with yourself and the learning process of how to learn, these little nuances of the tool is going to pay dividends for you. It's one of the biggest things that I always want to recommend because it might take a week or two before everything settles where you're like, all right, I'm really getting the results I want. Heck, for myself, it took me about a month when I was first starting before I recognized how to get the exact results in the exact way that I wanted them. Now, obviously, if you were to bring somebody in, that process would speed up tremendously. But like I said, it is up to you at the end of the day to make sure that you are staying on top of the learning process. It's an active learning process rather than a passive learning process. And the quote that we have for this one is garbage in is garbage out. If you give the tool a bunch of ramble jumbleness and you're not really sure where you're taking it, it's going to probably give you some ramble jumbleness. It can't read minds, but it can do a darn good job if you give it the exact input that it needs to do the thing that you want it to do. So quality in is quality out. So I wanted to quickly walk over a framework that I always recommend to beginners to kind of start to build that idea of what the foundation of a prompt should look like. So we have the ROSE framework. We have role, objective, scope, and expectation. So right off the bat with a prompt, you want to give it some sort of role. Now, this is something that you don't always have to do, but for beginners, I highly recommend it. So with the role, you want to establish a specific role or expertise to the AI. So you would say something like, hey, you are acting as an HR consultant with 20 years of experience. Then it has the scope and the kind of like the lens as to what and how it should approach this problem. Next, you have the objective. So with the objective, you're basically defining the goal of the prompt. Like, what are you trying to achieve with this? So with this example, hey, provide me a recruitment strategy. So that right now you'd have, hey, you are an HR consultant, provide me a recruitment strategy. Next is the scope. Now, with the scope, what you're doing is you're setting the boundaries or the focus areas. So you're defining, all right, is it a bigger scope or more down here? Kind of defining where you are in like the funnel or where you are in this grand scheme of things. So the example for here is that we're focusing on small businesses with under 50 employees. And then lastly, you have the expectation. Now, this is where you're defining the tone, format, or style. Like, what are you expecting this prompt to give you the result as? So in this example, we have, hey, write in a professional, concise tone. You could then also add in, all right, I want this formatted as a table or formatted as a blog post or a post itself, or then even in a style. You could say, I want it to be in a bullet point style, for example. So any of that, and that's more of a format, but any of that to help basically get your mind rolling as to how these tools work the best. And they work the best right off the bat when you're starting to use frameworks. So the example reads as follows. You're a career coach helping mid-level professionals enhance their resumes for management roles. So there we go. That is our role right there. Your task is to rewrite a provided resume summary to make it concise and focus on leadership skills. That is our objective. Only you, and we also have the scope built into the first sentence as well. Only use professional language, limit the response to 3 to 4 sentences, and emphasize measurable achievements. That is the expectation. So that is the basics of what I teach in our onboarding sessions, but it goes much deeper than that. There's a bunch more frameworks and things that we cover to make sure that you're walking away with everything you need to be confident using the tools. Next, we have immediate wins. So when it comes to starting off with these tools, you want to, and you basically need to ensure that you are seeing the immediate value. If you want to do longer term projects, the buy-in from your team and from yourself even is just simply not the same as if you were to right away showcase, hey, oh, you know, Bobby Joe, you're going to be able to now have your emails done for you in 30 seconds rather than you having to type them out for 30 minutes. So showcasing that immediate value with small quick wins really gets the ball rolling. So some of the things that I recommend with is that, hey, start with small and easy tasks. You want the task to be easy enough where basically anyone from a beginner level all the way up to expert are able to do this quick. quick and easy without any problems of a barrier where like I need to know this or that. It's like no, like anybody can type into their thing and say, "Hey, write me an email about so and so." Good to go. And like I said, they should be immediately useful. It should be that I can type this in, grab it, or get value from it, and then be good to go and not have to worry about inputting it here, doing this or that. It should be just boom, value to value, good to go, right out the door. And lastly, they should be quick and repeatable. Because if you can make sure that you're picking a task that people can right off the bat gain value from, like emails, summarization or drafting of emails, drafting of documents, brainstorming, things like that. We'll cover them in a second. Those things are super quick and they're something that you do on a daily basis. So you're already getting AI more and more integrated into your workflows. So some of the examples, like I said, are drafting and brainstorming. Those are the two that we like to emphasize. We also touch on data analysis and things like that in the training themselves. But the two big ones that are the most approachable for beginners is drafting and brainstorming because everyone would love to have their emails drafted for them. Everybody would love to have a document or created by AI and they just have to make some edits. So those are things that they can do right off the bat. Then you also have brainstorming as well, which is my personal favorite. And when it comes to the brainstorming, what you would do is you would have it come up with ideas for you for a task you're working on, or it could even then come up with some solutions as well to let the AI tool think of solutions to the problem you have. The next main topic that I always make sure is emphasized is the data safety and privacy because it is so important when you're looking to implement tools into your workflow that they follow the data safety protocols and privacy protocols that you have in place or that obviously the state or country that you live in has in place. So I have a couple of main points that we always like to emphasize. First, being be careful of what you input into these tools. Now, there is so much information out there, and especially the sensitive information that you have that you do not want others to have their hands on. So this is the type of private information and sensitive information that you would not put into these tools. It's one of the things that I always make sure I emphasize that you want to make sure that if it's something that is sensitive, that you are anonymizing it, that you are either anonymizing it or simply not using it. That brings us into the next point of practicing data minimization. So this is basically, okay, what data do I actually need to complete this task? So if you're needing to write an email, you don't need to input the person's name. You don't need to input all of the information about what you guys talked about if it's sensitive information, like potentially between two companies. You want that all to be minimized and say, hey, I need a more like a generalized, you can generalize things and say, hey, I have an email that I'm sending to Joe, Schmo, whatever the person's name is. And then you would include kind of like a summary of a little bit of what you talked about, but not the details that would be able to link back to a specific person. That's what it's all about because these AI tools can train on that information and it can be pulled up later. That's why I recommend obviously staying away from any type of sensitive information that could be linked to somebody that they would never want out there. And that brings us into anonymizing that info, like kind of what you can do about it, which is something we totally emphasize and we spend a very good amount of time in our processes of the training to make sure that everyone gets it right. And that's anonymizing. So that's all about keeping your data safe. So we have public facing information. This is the type of information that you can use whenever, wherever, because it's public facing. It's out there for the world to know. That's all fair game for these AI tools. But anything that's identifying of an individual or is sensitive to yours or their company, potentially your clients, there are a couple different ways that you can anonymize the information. The first being synthesizing. Now, synthesizing is basically just replacing information with fake or similar data. Now, data at the end of the day is just all of the things that you have, all the information that you have at your disposal that you can utilize for these tools. Like it could be your emails, it could be different charts or reports. That's all data that you can utilize. So the example I have here is myself, Hank Barker, 23 years old, could then become John Doe, young adult. It's giving the AI tool enough information about who I am as a person. I'm a young adult, I'm a young man, and it's able to take that and be able to utilize it still. Next example we have is of masking, which is omitting pieces of data. This is like taking information out. So the example we have is Mark Zuckerberg. So instead of it being Mark Zuckerberg, it's MZ with some asterisks. So you know who you're talking about, but the AI tool doesn't need to know that. It doesn't need to know that we're talking about Mark Zuckerberg, but it still has enough information to be able to do the task that you're asking to do. And lastly, we have generalization. So this is rounding up numbers up and down and using placeholders. So we have Elon Musk, 52 years old, and we can change it to serial entrepreneur because that's what Elon Musk is, and then generalize up and down his age to around 50 years old. You could even just say middle-aged man, things like that. And the AI tool will be able to get the idea of what you are asking of it. At the end of the day, this is the most important topic that I cover over the entirety of a workshop. It's the most important because it's keeping you and your company and your employees safe. So, the last main point that I always emphasize in the workshops is how to collaborate with your team and making sure that everybody's growing together. Because at the end of the day, this is a team effort, especially when you're learning something new and something complicated, such as new AI tools, new tech in general. So basically, what we focus on is bringing everybody up to the same foundation, the same level, and what this is able to do is it gives everybody a foundation to build off of. Now, you're going to have some that are much more like AI champions. You're going to have people that are much more inclined to using these tools and much more inclined to learning these things, like younger individuals, for example. And that's all right. But if we're able to bring everybody to the same base level, from there, everybody can continue to grow together. So some of the things that we like to emphasize, or we make sure we emphasize, is one, to always foster open communication and foster like just teamwork in general. There are some very good ideas for team building exercises involved around learning new tech, especially like bringing everybody into a room and like, all right, let's just have like a little hackathon, a little promptathon, get everybody comfortable with the tools, have you work in groups. So you pair somebody that's a little bit more inclined with somebody who is totally new to the tech, and then they can all bounce ideas off each other and grow and learn with each other. From there, I would also recommend having basically a vault of AI knowledge. It could be just simply like a Google Doc, or maybe it's a Microsoft Word or a Google Drive or a Slack, or maybe even a Notion, so that everyone has a place to go to if they're confused, and they have a place where they can put prompts. Maybe this prompt worked for me, and I know this prompt's going to work for Shelly as well. I'm going to throw it in there. So then everyone is benefiting from one shared location. And lastly, like I mentioned, the team learning sessions and experiments. Allowing everybody to experiment is one of the best things that can happen in an AI training process, because it allows everybody to fail and learn and grow. And that's what this is all about. Because at the end of the day, this is only going to benefit you if there's earlier failures in the beginning and everyone's kind of just getting comfortable with the tool. It's going to lead to better outputs down the line. So you probably ask yourself, okay, I have all this information. What's the next steps? So the next steps would be kind of different depending on if you were an individual looking to just kind of understand what the onboarding process looks like for bringing AI into your business, or if you're looking to train your team. If you're an individual, what I'd recommend is to start experimenting and to start learning from others. It could be myself, it could be tons of other people that are out there. Just get in a better idea of where AI can benefit you. Likely, if you're already in this space, you've already followed me, you're already pretty tech savvy to some extent. You're already using these tools. So I would just recommend continue to push that a little bit, get more comfortable. If you're just using ChatGPT, expand your range to a couple other tools, or maybe you're expanding the range to using Zapier a little bit more, which is for automations. I did a 20 something minute video. If you want to check that out as well, you can find that a couple posts ago. So there's a ton of different things for individuals to keep growing. And for teams, what I recommend is, if you are somebody that went through this entire training and you're like, all right, we definitely need AI, then you need to bring a trainer in and you need to get your team confident, because that is the next step to get everybody to the same foundation where you can then grow and benefit from these tools. It's so important that in the year of 2025, I mean, AI has been out for 2 years now. I mean, I say out for 2 years. ChatGPT has been out for 2 years, and it's grown everything exponentially over the last 2 years. And it's basically a now or never. It's the year 2025 is the year of implementation, and the longer you wait, the worse off you are compared to competitors, compared to just basically everything. So even the simplest training of getting everybody comfortable just to a certain base level of AI, which is a base thing that's pretty easy to provide for your team, that alone can pay extreme dividends for you in the future as more tools and more tech comes out, where you're like, all right, we have a base level that we can go off of. Now we can just continue to grow. So, with that all being said, AI is here. So let's adopt properly. And it starts with the right training. If you can get the right training right off the bat and ensure that your team is AI confident, you're just going to see the benefits. That's all you're going to see. There's really no downfalls. 1 2 to 3 hour training, it genuinely could change your business. It genuinely could change your business and get everybody excited about using AI. And then everybody saving time, and then you're saving money. And it's overall just an amazing experience. Everyone I've worked with has just been elated afterwards because of how much AI has impacted their business. So that being said, yeah, get some AI training, and I hope you enjoyed the entire walkthrough of what I cover and what should be covered in an AI onboarding session.